We now move to the other end of the Capitol, where in the U.S. House of Representatives chamber last night, President Trump addressed the nation. The deep political divisions of our time were on clear display. Yamiche is back to unpack the speech.
The President of the United States.
Last night, President Trump made history. He became the second man ever to deliver the State of the Union as an impeached president. The night began with President Trump seeming to decline a chance to shake hands with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
Okay, thank you very much.
It ended with the Speaker ripping up her copy of the president's address.
The state of our union is stronger than ever before.
Throughout the night, Republicans cheered on the president. They even called for his re-election with chance of 4 more years. Democrats often sat silently in their seats. At other times, they loudly voiced their disapproval.
Jobs are booming, incomes are soaring, poverty is plummeting.
The president touted bipartisan themes like a strong economy and low unemployment. He also invoked the country's cultural and political divisions. President Trump spoke at length about his signature topic, immigration.
Days later, the criminal alien went on a gruesome spree of deadly violence.
He railed against so-called sanctuary cities. He also recognized the brother of a man who had been killed by an undocumented immigrant. Then there were the made-for-TV moments of the night.
Rush Limbaugh.
President Trump awarded conservative radio host Rush Limbaugh with the Medal of Freedom. Limbaugh, who was recently diagnosed with lung cancer, got a standing ovation from Republicans. But Democrats and many others voiced outrage over the move. The radio host for years pushed the racist conspiracy theory that President Obama was not born in the United States. They also criticized Limbaugh's history of derogatory comments about women, like this remark on his radio show in 2012.
What does that make her? It makes her a slut, right? Makes her a prostitute.
In true Trump style, the speech was part campaign rally and part reality TV.
But Janai, I have some good news for you. An Opportunity Scholarship has become available. It's going to you.
There was the bid to drum up support for school choice efforts.
Your husband is back from deployment. He is here with us tonight, and we couldn't keep him waiting any longer.
The president also reunited on live TV a military wife and family with their father, Sergeant First Class Townsend Williams. He came home after his 4th deployment to Afghanistan. But President Trump's speech was also filled with false or misleading statements.
We will always protect patients with pre-existing conditions.
He again claimed that Republicans are protecting health care coverage for pre-existing conditions. But his administration is currently urging federal courts to dismantle the Affordable Care Act and protections for pre-existing conditions along with it.
The years of economic decay are over.
The president also claimed that he pulled the U.S. out of an economic tailspin, but the U.S. economy has been expanding for a decade. And monthly job creation was higher under President Obama's last 3 years in office than during President Trump's first 3 years. One word the president didn't mention last night, impeachment. And with his party loudly behind him, the president made clear he's ready for his 2020 re-election fight.
And Yamiche and Lisa are back with me now. So let's talk about last night. Lisa, you were telling me this morning that what you saw in the chamber was even more divided than we typically see there.
The only context I can give is it reminded me of sitting in the chamber for the Kavanaugh hearings. It was that intense. Judy, I've never seen from Democrats that kind of look, not just of anger, but sort of deeper personal offense at what the president was doing. You could see they were gritting their teeth the whole time when Rush Limbaugh was recognized and throughout. And that exploded into some of their chantings. Members who have never chanted before in the chamber on both sides were chanting. That is completely new. For Republicans, that roar of approval was a wave I had not heard before. Of course, Republicans love that, but it seemed like it was reacting to almost anything this president said. And of course, Speaker Pelosi, a woman who sort of runs on her own dignity. She's someone who thinks about that a lot. For her to take that step was a very big one. So it tells me, Judy, that now this kind of governing by emotion is something that's dominating for both sides, and it is not temporary. It feels like this has gone more deeply into lawmakers. It was something that I could feel physically in the chamber.
Where the president appeared to decide not to shake her hand when he first walked up, and where she then clearly tore up the speech. Yamiche, what more do we know about what you call those made-for-TV moments where they recognize the 100-year-old former Tuskegee Airman, and there were several moments like that, visitors in the gallery?
To fully understand last night's State of the Union, one has to remember that President Trump has a deep history in reality TV and at one point was part of a very successful reality TV show in The Apprentice. I'm told by White House sources that President Trump in part came up with the idea to have these made-for-TV moments. It felt in some ways like the famous Oprah Winfrey show where she was saying, you have a car and you have a car, giving away cars to her guests. And that's what the president was going for. He was going for this feeling of emotion. He wanted people watching to feel like he was doing something for this country. And that's why you had scholarships given away. You had a wife reunited with her husband on live television. You had a conservative radio host who some see as racist and others see as a darling in the conservative movement be given that Medal of Freedom. So what the president was doing there was really going back to his roots, his deep roots in reality TV. I should also know that I asked the White House about Rush Limbaugh because it was very controversial to give him a Medal of Freedom award. And they say they understand that he's a controversial figure, but that the president sees him as someone who's worthy of that medal. Of course, Rush Limbaugh was someone who had a lot of controversial statements, to say the least. But tonight, the White House is sticking with that decision.
And Lisa, coming back to what you and I were just discussing, the move by the speaker, tear up the speech, the chanting, how much of that do you think was planned ahead of time? What do you know about the motivations?
We have some reporting. I've been reaching out, of course, to Speaker Pelosi's staff, and they passed on what she told her House Democrats this morning in their private meeting. She told them that she felt that every page of that speech contained lies, and that is why she ripped it up. She told them, and the understanding is that she did that on the fly. That she made that decision while she was standing there. She also made some very interesting comments, Judy, that might have more long-term consequences. She said she felt liberated by the speech, meaning this is the president saying things that she knows to be false or she believes are false, meaning to me, she feels liberated to be so openly at odds with him versus a speaker who's trying to work to compromise, versus the speaker who reached out her hand by the end of the speech. She felt liberated to be the speaker who ripped up the speech. A big change just in the course of one State of the Union.
And quickly, Yamiche, to you referred in your report to what you call what's been referred to as either misleading or inaccurate statements the president made during the State of the Union.
That's right. The president has been someone who has not shied away from bending the truth if it suits his political will. And this speech was no different. He talked about a lot of different things that were misleading, including the fact that immigrants were committing a lot of crimes. Study after study shows that undocumented immigrants do not commit more crimes than American citizens. He also talked about the border wall. It's clear that even though the president is saying that he's building a lot of border wall, only about a mile of new border wall has been built. Most of the wall that he talks about is actually existing fencing where existing fencing was. So we saw the president really lean into that, and he has leaned into that because he has millions of social media followers who only believe what he says, and that's part of what the president's been doing. He's been able to kind of really galvanize his supporters to make sure that they believe what he's saying and to create an enemy of the media and others who point out when he's wrong on the facts.
Yamiche Alcindor, Lisa Desjardins, we thank you both.
Thank you.